This E3 2015 coverage is brought to you by Senshudo TV, Apog, Cinch Gaming, and Gamer Salute.
Okay, so we're here with the wonderful Lorne Lanning. For those that don't know you, Abe is back. First and foremost, for those that are living under a rock of some description, tell us a little about the history of the Oddworld series.
Well, thanks for having us, Sam. And it goes like this. We started the company in 1994. We wanted to make games. My favorite genres were platformers, puzzle games, games that made you think. We wanted to combine more action, adventure with games that made you think. But we also wanted to create sort of anti-heroes, really sort of helpless characters in terrible situations that you had to dig their way out of. And therefore you had to use your cleverness, you had to use some intelligence, and you had to use some twitch abilities. That became the basis of the Abe games that were sort of puzzle platforming, action adventure games. And we wanted to bring a lot more Hollywood production design and character development and script writing to try and make them feel more like movie experiences that still played like great games that we love. And that's really the history of Oddworld. We released our first title, Abe's Odyssey, in 1997. And then just this past year, we re-released that, completely redoing. And this is something that we've said, oh, it's an HD remake. This was not an HD remake. We completely, from the ground up, took a 20th century classic game and put it onto 21st century technology and tried to retain the nostalgia of what was good and tried to amplify things that gave us new possibilities. The audience liked it. We can't complain. It's given us the ability to do more. We're happy. We're thrilled.
Absolutely, and we reviewed that quite recently, in fact, and I believe we got quite a high rating, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we did okay. We rated pretty well.
Right. So now obviously we've got a new release just around the corner. Tell us a little bit about the remake of Abe's Exoddus.
Well, we're in the planning stages on Abe's Exoddus. In the meantime, we're still catching up with the PS Vita audience. We're releasing that shortly for New and Tasty. We're releasing the Wii U shortly for New and Tasty. And we're a little slow in that process because we believe we don't have the big marketing budgets like we used to have. We depend on quality. If the quality is consistently there, we think the audience will consistently support us. And that worked well on New and Tasty. Releasing last year on PS4, releasing this past year on Steam, Xbox One, finally, thank God, and PS Vita and Wii U to come. That leads us in the position where we're in the planning stages of Exoddus. And I think what we would do with Exoddus is kind of obvious. The same thing we did with New and Tasty. And we've asked people, if we do the same thing here, will you be happy? And they're like, do the same thing here. And we think we can put a couple new twists the way that we did with New and Tasty to sort of amp up what made the game special in the first place. But we're in the planning stages. We have a lot of things to figure out. We have a lot of things we need to get better at. We're little guys with small budgets, trying to find our way in a big world, a big open sea. But being in the planning stage is a huge relief, and we have no intention of stopping. So I wish I had release dates. I wish I had perfect commitments. It's tough to do that and say we're going to ship on this date and we're going to make sure it's great quality. Quality is more important to us than dates, which has kind of been our legacy over the last few years. But it's been working and we're being supported, so cannot complain.
That's the important part, right? So was there anything you learned from the release of New and Tasty that you're going to bring across into any later releases? Any points that you feel that you might want to improve or bring up, or do you think it was perfect as it was?
Well, I'm never happy with something that we ship. That's the honesty. There has to be a threshold of this is the smart point to be happy enough. And then as an artist, you always want to make things better. I mean, artists get us into trouble all the time, right? The director wants to spend too much money on the set. The guy wants to spend too long on a painting. The nature of the artist, our dysfunctionality. So I've tried to become more mature about these decisions over the year. Make better decisions, make more practical decisions, make more decisions that are important to the gamer. And so what we've been doing is the benefit of us having been out now today on digital networks is we actually get a sampling of who our gamers are. And we have Facebook, and we have Twitter, and we got feedback, and we have forums. All these things help us know more about what the gamers liked that we didn't have an opportunity to know when we used to sell games in the store, 10 plus years ago. And what that's done is it's made us be able to pick and choose. You know, I might have an idea that I think is really clever and everyone's going to love, but you might not like it. You know, and if I want to stick to that idea, I'm kind of an idiot. So the more I can know about what the audience likes and doesn't like, then the more we can react in a you know, direction that brings more joy. Now, as we go forward, there's all kinds of little things that the original systems didn't get us. Just, you know, of course, processing power, but really voices and ragdoll and opportunities to get more sort of brutal hilarity, which I think has always been an Oddworld signature.
Yeah.
I mean, we always made games that was about saving guys, but if you blew the save, man, it was kind of gruesome, you know? Like, like you're going to help these innocent guys escape a really dangerous factory where, you know, they just become ground meat quite easily, or, you know, someone else's dinner. And so there's those possibilities. I always looked at games as entertainment. So I looked at games as comedic possibilities. And so I thought we could have a lot more humor. We could have a lot more laughs, you know, more tears and more laughs. And so all the increased power that comes, it just gives us more and more opportunity to sort of squeeze those areas where we can do it, where we can get away with it, and give you more laughs while you're playing, you know. And one of the things we clearly know is we need to have a better model where we're supplying the audience with DLC, where we can say, okay, you got it, it's working. Not that we want to, you know, create some milking in-game purchasing pattern, but for one of the first times, we released a DLC pack this past year, and it was another level. It was a special level. You know, we offered it for pre-sales. It was called Alf's Escape. And people just loved it. I mean, it really, you know, those that are aware of it and start playing it, they were like, this is great. Because it really let us sort of take the 21st century tool set, take the mechanics that we had built and brought from the 20th century, and then do something completely fresh with new level design. Whereas Abe's Odyssey was really repackaging a classic into the 21st century technology, but we didn't really start breaking new boundaries in how that platforming level design could be. And I think Alf gave us an opportunity to say, wow, we can do it. We can do it. We're trying to figure out, you know, can we do that at practical price points and where the DLCs can work? But if we can do that, then we can have a higher frequency of release of ongoing product to the audience, which clearly we need to get much smarter and savvy about how we do that. Because I think, you know, if our game characters were actors, they'd be pissed off because we don't get them enough work. You know, they don't get employed enough. So,
right, that makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing I really wanted to touch on with yourself is kind of your views around the gaming industry as a whole.
I've not been very boisterous about it.
No one's heard of anything around that. But you know, there is the argument to be had that, you know, the money that's being ploughed into AAA games is kind of taking away some of the creative flow of the developers. And what is your thought process or even your experience based around that?
My experience is that was more true in the past than it is today. And so I felt very much that way 10 years ago. And we placed a bet that we were going to bet on the audience and digital distributed hopes of the future over betting on the publishers and their ability to keep on delivering innovative games. I think we placed the right bet. That's what allowed us to come back. We were able to start reselling directly to the audience, started to build coffers, and allowed to self-publish. Now, 10 years ago, you went through the publisher, through the big store, or you didn't sell anything. And that was it. And that came with all kinds of hooks, attachments, and prices. But the beauty that's happening today is, while the AAA games are more expensive than ever, what was the budget on GTA 5?
Millions.
Hundreds of millions, right? So now we're talking about, you remember when the movie Titanic went over $200 million? This was a global story about how outrageous the cost of movies have come. Now games are surpassing it, right?
Yep.
And making more in return. More money back than those big blockbusters. How crazy is that? So if you want to be creative on that game in a big company, forget about it, because there's no room for it. And if I were the boss of that company, I'd be telling the team the same thing. We don't really have the room. What we have the room to deliver is what that audience wants in the next Battlefield, in the next Call of Duty, in the next big franchise that we're supporting. We got to give the audience what they want. We're going to do it better than everyone else. We're going to spend boatloads of money on it, and they're not going to be able to get this premium experience anywhere.
Right.
There's not a lot of innovation on that front. There's some, you know. But what that does now is it creates greater appetite for things that aren't doing that. Right. So we have, what happens with Gone Home? 250,000 plus people paid for it on Steam after a few months out when I discovered it. It's got to be a lot more now. That game, no one ever would have published on a console.
True.
Right? But a small group of people was able to take an innovative idea. Let's take Braid and Jonathan Blow, you know. Small team, innovative idea, not the type of thing publishers go, oh, that's going to be a big seller next year. Let's get behind it in a major way. But because they're able to self-publish, they get it out there, and then we find the happy surprise, which is people actually want that. They can go spend $70 on a game. They can sign up for great free-to-play worlds, MMOs that they spend thousands of dollars on the same game throughout their lifetime. But we still see the appetite where people want the $5, the $10, the $15, $20 experiment that shows what games might be able to become, rather than this is the blockbuster that we all know is going to sell well next year. But if you want innovation, you know, go look somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Real groundbreaking innovation, like I saw with Last Guardian.
Yeah.
Like I saw with Media Molecules.
Oh, Dreams.
Dreams. It's just gorgeous, and I want to do it. So I think as much as, you know, the problem of this AAA squeezing everything out was a bigger problem in the past. Self-publishing has blown open the possibilities. Minecraft is a demonstration of that type of success. We can keep on going. You know, Double Fine is continually demonstrating the success. There's lots of titles out there that did fine, that are keeping small teams employed to make more games, and that didn't exist 10 years ago. So we're clearly in a much better space. We also have many different more platforms. So you can go mobile, pad, touchscreen, controller, VR. I mean, it's all coming and changing. All this, you know, super fuzzy. You know, I remember when you say, what is games? We say, well, it was Nintendo and coin ops, right? What is games today? How do you even define it, right? How do you even define it? That's how wide the possibilities are. So there's going to be, you know, it's exciting times, and we're going to see more and more innovation because the self-publishing possibility lets us do it cheaper, lets us experiment more, and lets us do things that, quite frankly, the big guys spending huge amounts of money can't afford to do.
And finally, one last thing. You've mentioned a few different games already that are exciting you this year, but if you get a chance to get away from talking to people, what's the one thing that you're really looking forward to getting a glimpse of on the show floor?
I want to get back to Morpheus, and I want to see more of the headset demos that I didn't get to see. I was there yesterday for an hour. I want to get back in there. If I can get my hands on Last Guardian, I want to see it. I'm a sucker for that beautiful platforming, beautiful world, relationships to other characters, and seeing that taken to new degrees in wonderful ways. I think the crowd reaction at Sony really said the audience wants it too. There's something special about that. These are not the biggest blockbusters of the last decade, but those games were so special. They were award winners, you know, hardcore fans. And of course, VR, and of course, AR. Right? So I think HoloLens had a pretty good release the other day, and people got really excited about that. Have you been doing the VR demos at Oculus and Morpheus?
I've barely had time to breathe, but we're getting around to it soon.
Yeah, and you'll be there, and you'll be pretty excited about it, and you'll be reporting on it, I'm sure. So I keep on trying to get back into the headsets really fast, you know. And there's some amazing stuff there, so be sure you get a taste of it while you're at the show, because you're not going to after the show for quite some time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely be taking a look and keeping up with you as time goes by for the new release.
Excellent.
Wonderful.